You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts or on our YouTube channel, all over social media, or our morning newsletter, KCSN Daily, dedicated to your Kansas City Chiefs. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What up, Chiefs Kingdom? It is us. It is BJ Kissel, Ken Swanson, Tucker Franklin from the Kingdom Bar and Grille out in Overland Park, Kansas for your KCSN live postgame show. Chiefs 30, Raiders 29, overcoming a 17-0 deficit and the referee's crap to pull out this victory. Just did a 3.5, 4-hour live show, second screen watch party. Appreciate everybody for coming over that was watching that. But Kent, initial thoughts, man.
I know I'm all over the place. I'm in a glass case of emotion. This was one of the most, I was supposed to be such a calm, docile game for me, and then it just got hyper emotional very quickly. I am like coming down from adrenaline from the call on Chris Jones. It's been insane. It's just been an absolutely insane day. Chiefs pull it out. Chiefs starting it. Ball don't lie.
All right, we are going to talk about the refs right off the top because there's no way we can talk about this game and not talk about Chris Jones just apparently pissing off Carl Cheffers. Something happened. There's something there with two just completely egregious, one call, one non-call at the end of the game with the holding. But before we get to that, if you are watching us live on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button and go ahead and follow us and let us know what you thought about that game in the comment section. Our guy Tucker will be asking you questions. Let us know what you thought about the game and respond to the different things that we're talking about. We'll bring up and react to your different thoughts and questions from this game. But Kent, I know it's going to be the talk for the next few days. I know it's going to be the talk in the locker room. It's nice when the Chiefs can pull out the victory and guys can feel a little bit more freely to speak about what this game was about. Yeah. But I don't think that the NFL can go back and watch this game and not make some drastic changes to the way that they call roughing the passer.
Yeah, they're going to have to. I mean, they're going to have to, especially considering the context of the entire weekend with the egregious Tom Brady call earlier in the weekend too. Like, this isn't just the first time this is happening. This isn't this isn't a one-time thing. There's been a couple of these instances recently where the roughing the passer has been awful. Just they don't know how to call it, or they are just blatantly missing. I mean, it almost cost the Chiefs a game. The Chiefs should have won that game. I genuinely believe that the right team won that game. But it was closer than it needed to be, and I think there was a potential 10-point swing that happened in that last couple minutes of the first half.
There were so many decisions from the play calling for Andy Reid on that final drive. We talked about the second down carry to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then the third down kind of shot play to McCole Hardman, to going for two for Andy Reid and then going for two for Josh McDaniels and the way that came out. And then, we said it on the end of the second screen watch party that, I think it was tweeted out earlier this week that Marty Schottenheimer always had a saying, keep it close, and at the end of the game, the Raiders are going to Raider. And then in the biggest play of the game, the last play of the game, two Raiders basically ran into each other.
Yeah. That two of the Raiders' best receivers ran into each other.
Hunter Renfrow running into Devontae Adams for something that is not going to sit well in that locker room. But kind of par for the course with this game. It was just a weird game from the beginning with all those calls. And then the non-call on Chris Jones on the holding, which is complete. I don't know how you missed that call in that scenario because it's in front of absolutely everyone. Everyone saw that.
So I think there's some moments where fans will scream and cry for a blatant pass interference call. Like, I think in the back end of a the back seven, that's where a lot of that happens a lot of times, where you're seeing like a blatant pass interference call. Very rarely do you see a holding call where the entire stadium erupts. Like, most of the time when the crowd in unison freaking out over play, it's like a PI. It's a pass interference. No, this was a blatant hold that everyone and their mom saw except for the Zebras. And that was it's par for the course this week. The NFL has a problem, regardless of the Chiefs winning this football game. The NFL has a problem. I don't know what the answer is to fixing it, but they had a problem coming in, like the storyline of Sunday was the roughing the passer call, and it extended into the weekend. It's into Monday. It's incredible.
It's not consistent. The Chris Jones, I mean, we got to get to the rules as far because Derek Carr didn't even have the ball at that point. So was he a quarterback at that point with the roughing the quarterback when he doesn't have possession of the ball going down to the ground? There's going to be I'm sure a lot of discussion on every national talk show over the next couple of days about roughing the penalty, because the way that Tom Brady was thrown down, Mahomes was thrown down harder in this game. They didn't call that one.
Yeah.
But then they call it on Chris Jones when all he's doing is taking the ball away and landing on top. And we talked about, again, on the second screen watch party, that I understand the not pile driving a quarterback into the ground and trying to protect quarterbacks in that way. But there has to be some form of common sense when making those calls, as far as, was he making a football play, or was he not intentionally trying to hurt him, or was he going overboard with his aggression that could lead to the faces of the NFL, which are the quarterbacks, which we get and understand. You don't want those guys getting hurt on plays that doesn't need to happen. But these guys work too hard. They bust their ass too much. It's too physical of a game to try to take that away from guys like Chris Jones in that kind of play.
It wasn't even the hardest hit on Derek Carr on the day. And that's the thing that's just kind of surprising. And again, it just continues to speak to the consistency of it, because there was a play where George Karlaftis was a hint late and got a nice little shot to the kidneys on Derek Carr, kind of piling on Darius Harris's sack. The inconsistencies in this call are just and the whole point of this is to protect the quarterback. So maybe it's a makeup call for not calling it that next time. But I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's just too many inconsistencies with it.
Yeah, we're going to bring on Maddie Lane and Craig Stout in here in just a bit as we get through some more of the headlines from this game. But you look at Patrick Mahomes' stat line. We talked about it all week coming into this, that he was close to passing Troy Aikman on his career touchdown total list in 100% of the touchdowns in 41% of the games.
Yeah.
The tweet that was put out by our good buddy Josh Briscoe, which is amazing considering Troy Aikman was on the call. They didn't bring it up. We were talking about whether there's going to be a side bet or something on DraftKings as far as whether or not they were going to bring that up, but they didn't talk about it.
Yeah, and then Mahomes passed him. I mean, it wasn't just tying him; it's beyond 100%. Yeah. The third touchdown ties it in 41% of the games, as Briscoe says, and then Mahomes takes it. It's just funny because the way the game flow was early in the game, I had no inclination that Patrick Mahomes was going to throw 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, and all to Travis Kelce.
All the Travis,
and he became the second player since 2013 to catch 4 touchdowns in one game. I think the third tight end since 1980 to do something like that.
He has the stat line of the century: 7 catches, 25 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He averaged the least amount of yards per catch of any player in the game. In the game, and scored 4 touchdowns still.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Not a necessarily negative, but one of the things that's got to get figured out is the run defense. It's been so good this season that something was made, or whether the Raiders exposed something or whether the Chiefs didn't have a good answer for them going to 6 offensive linemen. They talked about it during the broadcast, looking at some of the average yards per play. They were averaging almost 10 yards a play with 6 offensive linemen on the field, which they had more than nearly 50% of the time in the first half, which is crazy numbers. It wasn't just they tried a few things and got some shot plays. They were consistently picking up chunk yards with an extra offensive lineman. Is that something that the Chiefs are going to see more of, or is it just something that the Raiders are really, really good at?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big question for this team, and I don't anticipate the Bills are going to try to emulate that necessarily. I don't even think the Bills carry a fullback. So part of that was, hey, six offensive linemen, a fullback. They're playing 20 personnel essentially with just 20 jumbo, and I don't know if that's going to be the model for maybe Buffalo, but I could very much see some teams trying to emulate that later in the season. The next time the Chiefs play the Raiders, the Chiefs are going to have to be prepared for that for sure.
Yeah, before we get to the headlines on defense, again, we'll be Maddie and Craig on in just a minute. I want to give a quick shout out. Obviously, we're going to talk about Travis Kelce. We're going to talk about, we already did a little bit, but talk about MVS having a big game. But I want to shout out Jerick McKinnon for the game that he played. When the Chiefs were down 17-0, that first touchdown drive that they got, it was basically on the back of Jerick McKinnon, kind of an over my dead body type drive, especially that big run. The Chiefs hadn't had a chunk play, hadn't really done anything offensively before that. That's notable, and for him to run through, give a little bit of spark, they went right back to him on the next play. Andy Reid kept him with the hot hand. I thought that was a huge difference in this game. There's so much to talk about that that performance could get lost because we're going to talk about the refs. We're going to talk about all the records that were broken with Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But shout out Jerick McKinnon for really stepping up when he was needed.
8 carries, 53 yards rushing, a 30-yard rush, the second biggest play, I believe, of the game, second most explosive play for the Chiefs. McCole Hardman had a 36-yard catch. But, I mean, I think that's one of the things that that Jerick McKinnon does have in him. You know, he's got a little bit of juice, and, like, the explosive runs are not something that have come super easy for this team to this point in the season. I mean, they've been doing a good job. Like, last week, they did a really good job getting 8-9-yard carries. The big explosive runs haven't necessarily been something that's been big a part of this run game. So getting a little bit of juice, that was a field flipper for them. That was massive, I think, for this team, and kind of settling in a little bit. They tried to sling the ball around the yard, finally got on the ground a little bit, got the ground game going a little bit, and it was because of Jerick McKinnon.
All right, let's move on to the defensive side. Again, we'll give a couple headlines and then bring Maddie and Craig on. But defensively, Kent, what stood out to you the most?
Survive and advance, I think, a little bit, right? I mean, obviously the run defense was not great, and we talked a little bit about that. 6 offensive linemen, you know, playing heavy personnel. Like, I mean, they came at them, but I think the Chiefs, you know, made some plays when they needed to. They played enough situational football late that gave them an opportunity to close this game out. Hey, that that 3rd and 1 catch to Devontae Adams just pushed somebody.
Yeah,
that's probably
the cameraman. Yeah, he pushed a sound tech to the ground while he's going to the tunnel. Yep.
So that might warrant a suspension. I could see that, right? You would know better than I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comment section is talking a lot about that. I think
well, they got it on camera.
Yeah.
Kind of stupid.
Oh,
kind of dumb.
I got it. Yeah, I mean, you know, some situational football.
Oh my God.
What?
You're putting Chris Jones on ESPN Live.
Oh. And Patrick Mahomes. That'll be fun. They're going to have Troy and him sit down. Hey, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Is Kent shake? Josh Kaiser asks if I'm shaking from adrenaline or the temperature. I think it's adrenaline. Yeah. I'm genuine. Like, so when
it's nice out,
it's great out. It doesn't feel too bad. When the call happened, I've got an adrenaline rush I haven't felt since the Bengals game. I don't even want to say the Bengals, but I haven't gotten an adrenaline rush like that since like the Bengals game, and my body did not take it. I can't believe I had to be on camera the entire time afterwards. But yeah, no, I'm shaking a little bit from that.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring on Maddie and Craig right now to help break this one down. Yeah, we just got done talking to these guys for about 3 hours on our second screen watch party. Guys, now that you've had about 12 minutes to digest this victory, Maddie, top takeaways from tonight.
Actually, I'd like to jump in and take this. Oh, I'm sorry. I just got flagged for roughing the passer. Maddie, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
You know, that was a game. That was a long game. There's positives, there's negatives, but that was just long. There's so many ups and downs throughout that whole game. I'm glad that that Hunter Renfrow decided to run into Devontae Adams because Juan Thornhill was in for a rough play there. I think the ball was going to Adams, but I mean, it didn't look great for any of the defenders in coverage in that way. So, you know, that worked out well for the Chiefs, but that was a game. That was a very long game as we were watching together.
It really was. There was a lot of kind of ugly about it. The Chiefs defense, after playing really well for the first 4 weeks of the season, didn't look great. Didn't look great tonight. Had moments. When they did have good moments, it seemed like flags came or flags didn't come, and that kind of stopped some of the momentum that they had. They weren't able to overcome some of that. They had some really poor tackling to start the game, and that kind of allowed the Raiders to sustain some drives, get into some situations. That first touchdown pass to Devontae Adams shouldn't have happened because it should have been like a 4th and 6 or 4th and 7 situation where they were punting the ball. Yeah. Just a lot of things that you can sit and nitpick about this, and yet Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes just kind of take over. Like they just kind of will this game to the Chiefs' side of the field, and that's the story is going to be about the refs. The story is going to be about, you know, the way this game was played tight. Now apparently about Devontae Adams shoving a cameraman, but it should be about Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes lighting up the Raiders. Guys, I do want to throw this at you. This isn't the first time the Raiders franchise has seen a Chiefs player catch 4 touchdown passes on them. You'll recall Jamal Charles doing it a few years back. He had 5 for the game, so Travis
Get a
didn't
couple
quite
more
get
yards.
there.
Couple more yards.
A few more yards. Those touchdowns were from a few yards out. They weren't exactly in the red zone.
4
It wasn't
touchdown passes for the second time in franchise history against the Raiders franchise.
Things you love to see. You bring up kind of, hey, this is one of those Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, your stars put the team on the back kind of moments. And you got to remember, like, the Chiefs are good for a few of those every year. Like, this is not something, abnormal. There's going to be plenty of games that this season that you're going to go, hey, you know what? Defense wasn't great. Run defense wasn't great, but they didn't have Patrick Mahomes and we did, and that's really what mattered at the end of the game. Like, that's going to happen a few times this season. Kind of thought that was going to be the case for the Colts game, honestly. You thought that was kind of just going to be one of those games where they gut it out and they figured it out because, they've got better players and better situational football moments. And it didn't happen, against the Colts a couple weeks ago. Happened this week. It's going to happen a few times again this season. You're gonna escape by the skin of your teeth. But the truth of the matter is, the good teams, the best teams in the NFL, this is how they kind of rise above. Their hit rate on games like this are typically a lot higher than when lesser teams kind of get into those opportunities, get into those moments. Hence, the Raiders are 1-4. Anything else on the offensive side of the ball that kind of just gets overlooked on your guys' side, like from what you saw during this game offensively? We just talked a little bit about Jerick McKinnon, but is there anything else that kind of maybe you think got a little bit overlooked in this game on the offensive side of the ball, Maddie?
I mean, I think a lot because the Chiefs really couldn't run the ball in this one, right? Like, we're coming off this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the best run defense in the NFL for the past however long now, one of the best defenses, and they could not run the ball outside of Jerick McKinnon's 2nd and 17 run, in which the Raiders are like, hey, you want to pick up 10 yards in this run or whatever, so be it. It ended up being a huge gain, which was great, but the Chiefs couldn't run the ball. They seemed like they almost completely abandoned some of the stuff that was working versus the Buccaneers. Now, no Trey Smith probably plays a part in that. Nick Allegretti on some of his pulls was really struggling to pull around and kick out Chandler Jones specifically. Like, he was really struggling to land that block. So they were just stuck in their zone run game, and it looked a lot like it did any other time the Chiefs are stuck in their zone run game right now. So that's worth noting. But then the turnaround, the way the Chiefs were able to have the abysmal offense for the entire first half, essentially not be able to run the ball. Their passing game isn't working because they can't block these defensive ends. In the second half, that wasn't a problem at all. The only time they were really pressured in the second half was maybe 1 or 2 Max Crosby great rushes, and then you're sending pressure. And they got home a couple times, but that was it. It's like the offensive line and the offense as a whole had a fantastic turnaround there in the second half. And I think really figured some stuff out on how to win games when it's going like this.
Oh, man. Yeah. The second half offense, by and large, was excellent. Like, everything seemed to be going pretty well for them. A couple of play calls that, maybe you don't love, but that happens in an Andy Reid game script, especially in the second half and especially in the low red zone. Like, stuff like that happens. So I'm not going to nitpick too much in the second half. Outside of that end of the game play calling, I did not love that. That was rough. I mean,
they deserve to lose for that.
You call an outside run with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he's not been able to get things going particularly well. Jerick McKinnon, clearly the hot hand, not the guy who gets the ball in that scenario. Fine, whatever. You're in 3rd and 3. And then you kind of take a shot play to Mecole Hardman. And Mecole, props for toughing through a heel injury today, but he's covered. Like, you're kind of throwing the ball up and living to fight another day. That's fine. Then go for it on 4th down. Like, I mean, you're at midfield. Go for it on 4th down. Trust that you're going to be able to punch it in with your offense. It obviously worked. It obviously was a situation the Chiefs come out ahead. But that's one of those that I look back on and I think, oh, man, like that little into the game sequence there. If the Chiefs had gone ahead, if the Raiders had gotten into field goal range and been able to kick a field goal to win this game as time expired, we'd all be sitting there talking about that into the game sequence for the offense, not what happened on defense.
I mean, 25 plus teams in the NFL probably beat the Chiefs in the Raiders position there. I mean, like maybe it's not 25, but it's a lot more teams than you feel comfortable with making those decisions to, again, make an outside run out of, I believe it was out of the shotgun, even with a running back who has struggled to get traction specifically in this game, but really all year out of the gun. You're going to make that run to the outside towards Max Crosby, towards Andrew Wiley, towards Nick Allegretti, the guys that have struggled the most. You're going to follow that up. And I get it that the Raiders gave you the proper coverage look, but it still resulted in essentially just being a shot play. They have one-on-one coverage running away from where the man defender is going to be, but it's going to a guy that can barely run full speed on his heels. So yeah, that was a rough job. And then to just go ahead and punt the ball away, you're essentially saying, hey, defense, you've stopped them 2 times all game. Go do it again. That was highly questionable. And it worked out, so probably nothing's going to come from it. But, that was just a highly questionable run of plays there.
I've got something here from the podium. Andy Reid says that Tershawn Horton suffered a torn ACL.
Man.
That stinks.
Man.
Is this a contract year for him too? I think
that really stinks, man.
Feel bad for
that
him.
really stinks. Turk's just that guy that just shows up and does it. And I mean, they've got some depth on the defensive line. They'll be able to try and replicate what he's done. Colin Saunders filled in very admirably today, once again, all season long. But you hate to see a guy like that that's part of your strong dime rotation as one of your prime pass rushers be a guy that goes out. Really sucks for him.
Yeah, Colin Saunders, though, shout out to him for stepping up in a big way. I had something I really wanted to talk to you guys about because I'm thinking I'm going to try to defend the logic of Josh McDaniels here. You ready for this?
Oh.
Okay.
You ready for this? You ready for this, Peach? Okay.
Good luck.
All right. So here's what I see. Okay. So if the Raiders get it, they're up 1, 4.5 minutes left, and the Chiefs are kind of in a precarious situation, I think, because of the inconsistencies of their kicker. They don't have their primary kicker. They have Matthew Wright. Matthew Wright's already missed a field goal. He already missed one that got called back. He's had his issues. He's been a little bit inconsistent. So I think you're looking at some of the situational football. What does Andy Reid continue? One of the things he leans on a little bit. I think he tends to be a little bit more conservative with his play calling. I think we saw that again today when it's some of these 4-minute situations, trying to move the ball down the field a little bit. I think there's a little bit of they play it a little bit safe, right? Well, what happens if they get down into into a makeable field goal range? If they get down to the 20, are they going to put the ball in the hands of Matthew Wright, a guy that's had his struggles kicking the ball? I think it kind of puts them in a little bit of a tough situation trying to navigate, hey, anybody but the best player in the world. I think that 4.5 minutes was less about Mahomes and more about the guys surrounding him. And I'm not trying to knock the guys that they have around him because they got plenty of talented football players. But I think the situational football, the 4.5 minute can at times kind of neutralize Mahomes. And also you've got an inconsistent kicker. I think those were some of the factors that they were probably taking into consideration when they're trying to make that decision. I don't know if you guys want to dunk on me or push back in a big way. Matty looks like he's ready to chomp at the bit.
Yeah, the Chiefs had scored 5 out of their last 5 possessions, 4 of which were touchdowns. Yeah. The Raiders defense wasn't stopping them. The Raiders defense wasn't getting a stop there. So you're making that entire decision based on a missed field goal, which I get it. It's definitely a possibility given what you've seen from Matthew Wright in this game with the doinked extra point, with the missed field goal, but you're banking the win on this game based entirely on your opposition missing one, decided they want to attempt a field goal and not just let the best player put another one in the end zone from the 1 yard line to Travis Kelce. And then 2, this kicker is going to miss another kick. I don't know. I think there was too much time left, in my opinion, to go oh, hey, yes, we got a 1-point lead versus Patrick Mahomes. What does that really accomplish? A 1-point lead versus Mahomes with that much time just seems kind of silly to chase to me. But
if Harrison Butker is on the roster, I agree. I think Matthew Wright plays into consideration. I think some of the play calling tendencies of Andy Reid in some of these situations takes into considerations. I think Matthew Wright's probably the thing that pushed it over, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's entirely just the play calls. But guess what? You just got done talking about 4 or 5 touchdowns on those 5 possessions. Guess what happened on the possession after they got the football? They stalled out because of the play calling. Questionable play calling.
But they didn't need points, though.
It's true. It's true, but we talked about that a little bit in the live game, in the live reaction that it's okay, well, here we're about to see Foreman and Andy. They're about to get the ball back. You're about to see that. So it kind of negates some of it. We know that. Josh McDaniels knows that. Yeah. Everybody in the Raiders organization knows that if they miss that, there's your risk element. It's mitigated by the fact that they're probably going to go a little bit vanilla. You're probably going to be in a situation where if you put them up against it and there's a 4th and short, Andy Reid's probably not going for it in the regular season in that scenario. We've seen him go for it. It's usually in more high leverage situations, post game, regular their postseason and some regular season games that really, super matter at the end of the season. But at that point, you're probably expecting that you get them to a 4th and short. They're going to punt the ball away. You're going to get the ball back. And they did with plenty of time left.
Tucker's got something for us.
Yes, I do. I got some couple quotes from Chris Jones, courtesy of our friend of the program, James Palmer. Chris said he and Derek Carr, who are friends, had a laugh about the roughing the passer call after the game. Jones said Carr told him he has no idea why that was called a roughing the passer. Jones also said in the locker room he would like roughing the passer calls to be able to be reviewable in the future. He said there's nothing else he could have done. Said he's well over 300 pounds, so it sounds like the NFL is now fat shaming. Hate to see that from the league. Also, 2 minutes ago,
Perfect.
That is incredible.
Chris Jones quote tweeted a video of him tackling Derek Carr with 2 shrug emojis.
Yeah. That giant shrug emojis. He's actually, yeah.
It's one of the-
Shaming. Oh, that's wonderful.
Shaming.
Love it.
Guys, this is one of the things I want to bring back up as a discussion point, because it's all anyone's going to talk about this week is how quickly, when the NFL feels like it gets embarrassed or gets called out for something that's egregiously bad, they will change it quickly. When not, they'll make it seem like we'll just let this kind of pass over until the next time. Between the Tom Brady thing and then tonight on national TV where everybody's watching, do you feel like there's any kind of legitimate case that they may change some things? Not waiting until the offseason, but can change it right now as far as how they make that call, or not reviewable. That's a bigger deal. But there's got to be a memo, a fax, like email sent out to all the refs being like, we cannot keep up this, or it's going to not destroy the game. We're not going to make big statements like that, but it's going to water down things, and it's going to cause issues.
It tarnishes moments. I mean, that's the thing. It's tarnished some moments this weekend. It's become the big storyline, and it's overshadowed the games on the field this week. I think there's some legitimacy to, I'm not, don't be too grand with it, but I'm with you. But at the same time, that's the storyline. No one cared about the on-field moments this week.
But that was the same storyline from the Bucs game, and then Jerome Boger came out and said, "Hey, I thought it was a penalty, so deal with it." I mean, that was his response. So, I think if it was a bigger deal to the NFL, if they cared, then that would have been a much different, it would have been a much different message. He essentially came out and said, "Nope, I thought it was a penalty. I threw the flag because of XYZ. Here it is." And that was his official statement after the game. I don't know if the overall NFL officiating has released anything on it or anything like that, but his statement about it just being nope, that was the call, get over it kind of thing, just I think that shows you right now what at least the referees think about what these plays are and what they feel about in terms of changing them or making something different.
I don't think it's going to change. And I think what we're going to see is at the owners' meeting this next offseason that the Chiefs will bring it up. Somebody will bring it up and it'll kind of flash in the news cycle again. And they'll say, well, we're making an emphasis to let them play a little bit more and not call that. And then we'll be right back here in the middle of next year for some play that's on another Tom Brady-esque level quarterback. It'll
be a play that looks exactly like that, and the quarterback will get hurt.
Yes.
That's
and then
the
they'll
thing.
freak out and say, we can't have this happening.
Then they'll go the other way.
We can't have a physical game lead to injuries.
You're playing with fire a little bit. And there's some people have speculated out there that perhaps some of the stuff that has happened with Tua Tagovailoa and some of his forceful hits to the ground, that's a very high profile position that had a concussion. I don't think it had anything to do with a roughing call necessarily, but some people have kind of speculated a little bit that could be something played into factor. In fact, someone asked Jerome Boger about that, and he said no. But no one tells the truth 100% of the time in the National Football League. So it's just something to at least kind of put in the back of your brain, high profile positions being put in a situation like that. It can be a little tricky, I think, at times. Guys, I'm trying to think. Is there anything either side of the ball now? We talked a little bit, maybe some unheard things, or some stuff on the offensive side of the ball. Just any storyline you don't think we've covered yet that you want to get off your chest. Maddie, go.
Listen, Craig has an entire spreadsheet right now of defensive fireballs ready to unleash on you. So let this man talk about his defense real quick.
Nah, man. No. I'm not going to unleash the fireballs. I'll save that for the lab tomorrow night. No, the one that I'm going to do, Joshua Williams, high leverage situation. He's the guy. Joshua Williams and Deion Bush in the game in that scenario. Rashad Fenton was not on the field. I know there's a lot of questions because, Trent McDuffie's coming back next week. What is this secondary going to look like? Is the rookie going to start opposite of Jalen Watson? Guys, I think that should tell you something right then and there. In a situation, in a gotta-have-it moment. And I didn't see any injury to Rashad Fenton. Maybe there was.
So I have been told that he was limping pretty hard when that play before chasing down Derek Carr when he was coming on the blitz. People have told me that. Now, to counter, they also moved Watson around a lot after Fenton got smoked.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, part of it still counts. Continue.
Yes, because they were having Jalen Watson shadow Devontae Adams after that initial onslaught by Adams on Fenton. So you got to see a lot more Jalen Watson being trusted to be in that role. That doesn't seem like the scenario where Trent McDuffie comes back, a guy who's gotten this trust, a guy who has been the guy that they've looked at pretty hard so far. Trent McDuffie's going to come back and he's going to have a starting spot. I'm going to guess we are going to see Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, and L'Jarius Sneed after these things. Man, that is incredible production from a rookie class. And they're going to it's going to be a trial by fire week one with all three of those guys on the field. But I think that's probably the three that we're going to see next week.
All right. So I have one thought here. I'm going to ask you guys this question. The Chiefs defense has played great. They've played above their heads, I would argue, with a lot of rookies. They've played shorthanded. Do we think that this was the week that missing Willie Gay, that missing Trent McDuffie, Mike Dana, Tershawn Wharton for most of the game? Is this the Frank Clark
for over half the game, who was playing out of his mind to start the game? Yeah.
It feels like this might have been the week, though, that we started to see this defense miss some of the key players that are, at every level of that defense that just aren't on the field right now.
I think that's fair. I think that's definitely fair. It's a limited sample size, but Trent McDuffie and what we got to see from him looked like the best of the rookie defensive backs. And that tiny little bit we saw against the Cardinals, but that makes sense. He's your first overall pick in the draft. You anticipate that. So getting him back will be helpful. Willie Gay is clearly their most athletic linebacker that shows the most range, and that's an area they have definitely struggled with. I don't know if in this particular game, if he necessarily gives their run defense a whole nother level or anything like that, but not having Frank Clark for a half, not having Mike Dana for the entire game, and then losing Tershawn Wharton, like all those things combined together, I think definitely plays a role. And them not being, I think this, you could definitely tell this week. I don't know if it's specifically the Raiders, but this week, it all kind of caught up to them. And I think the extra injuries with Clark and everybody coming all at once.
I'd agree. Because they played pretty cohesive, pretty together for most of this year. Raiders weren't doing anything that the Chiefs hadn't seen and hadn't defended well. And it just seemed like everybody was a little out of sorts. People were struggling to hold their gaps, be in the right gaps in the run fits, struggling to tackle. That's not something that we've seen out of, other guys not named Willie Gay Jr. so far this season. So, there were just a lot of things that did not look up to what we had seen the first 3-4 weeks of the season. And so I'm looking at it a little bit as there's another explanation other than just, they suck now. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a little bit of a step up. Again, the Bills, they might not look as good as maybe they had earlier in the season, but I do think that we see a little bit of a rebound game, especially if they get some of those guys back.
All right, guys, before we wrap up this show and we get our final thoughts, I do want to bring up a picture right now because anybody that's following us at KC Sports Network knows that part of what we're trying to do with this network is give back to the community in different ways. And the My First Game campaign that we started this year is partnering with the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kansas City, and we're providing 4 tickets to every Chiefs home game for kids who have never been. Pictures you're looking at right now are Tessa and Colton, again, part of the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kansas City, and our partnership with them gave them tickets sent them and their families out to the game, took them to the team store, got them some foam fingers to try to give them an experience in a game that they will never forget. Hopefully they weren't around fans that were letting the refs have it in this game, but already got an email from our good partner, Jason, over at the Boys and Girls Club, got an email from their family saying how much fun they had and how much of it's an experience that those kids are going to remember forever. So if you're watching the show and you're a big time Chiefs fan, you've been to Arrowhead, just know that one of the things that we're trying to do at KCSN is give as many kids as that opportunity as we possibly can. So when we started the KCSN Foundation, which we've got our charity golf tournament coming up this weekend, we do all of these things throughout the year. We're raising money. It's for things like the My First Game campaign and to give back in that way. It's awesome to see those pictures. It's why we do it. And we'll be continuing to do that for the rest of the season. So take a quick break and then bring those pictures up. So I appreciate everybody that is listening that's donated to our foundation or donated to any things that we do. We're trying to give back as much as we possibly can to make it more than just, doing great content. So, all right, guys, let's get our final thoughts going into next week. Got a big one, obviously, against the Buffalo Bills. I know we were just talking about it. Final thoughts going ahead. Maddie, we'll start with you.
First of all, I'm here for the budding Max Crosby, Patrick Mahomes rivalry. Crosby played a great game. These two are yelling at each other the entire game. They're getting each other's face. Like, I'm here for that for every Chiefs Raiders game, and I think they actually do respect each other a lot. Also, highly excited for the Bills game because the Chiefs came out flat yet again versus an inferior opponent. It's something they do pretty frequently. What do we know about the Chiefs, though? They usually come out pretty high versus teams that they have a chip on their shoulder against, or teams that they respect a lot more. So I am excited to see what they look like on Sunday. I think it'll hopefully look a lot more like the Bucs game or the second half of this game, because that's kind of what they usually do once they have those kind of matchups coming up.
My big takeaway is Sky Moore is your closer, ladies and gentlemen. He's the guy you turn to when it comes to the end of the game. I mean,
so
we
confusing.
haven't really mentioned him much, but look good in limited touches, big, some chunk plays, get him ahead of the sticks. Love seeing him get to be integrated a little bit more. Want to see a little bit better performance off of both sides of the ball, coming up here. But division games on, prime time, those are tough, man. Like you can't take them for granted. So you take the win when you can.
Plenty to clean up. I think helps on the way a little bit. You're going to see, I think, probably Trey Smith back. You're going to see Trent McDuffie back. You've got plenty to kind of
Willie Gay.
Is Willie Gay back this week, or is I think
nope.
It's another couple weeks, but he'll be back
One
soon.
more.
He's back soon. For the Bills game specifically, obviously it'd be nice to have him too. But you're going to need a little bit more reinforcements are on the way. One positive takeaway I think you got to think about though with this football game: no turnovers. They forced one, didn't get called, but they forced one. And protect the football, play well, let the best player in the world take you where you need to go. You're gonna be just fine next week against a really good Bills team.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring this up because I talked about it during the week that I thought this was going to be a big opportunity for one of the receivers or the receiving game to step up and have a big game. I'm gonna give a shout out to McCole Hardman playing through. He's obviously in some pain. I don't know. The fact that they gave him the ball, that he goes out and they show him on the broadcast being as much pain as he was, and then like literally 20 seconds later he gets the handoff or gets the the end around and picks up a first down. But shout out to McCole, and then shout out to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Made some big plays in this game, finished with, I think, team high 90 yards in the game. So shout out to both those guys for playing well. It's what you're going to need when you go up against a team that has got more offensive firepower. When you play the Buffalo Bills, you're going to need those guys to both step up and make the big time plays. So shout out to those guys. And then way to overcome. I agree with what Craig said. At this point, you just check the box, move on. Chiefs are 4-1. The Raiders are 1-4. Chargers are dealing with all kinds of injuries. The first thing you got to do is win your division. And the Chiefs separated themselves by pulling this one out tonight. So that's a big one to where you go up against, Buffalo, and you're not hoping not to end up at 500.
Yeah.
So huge. That's a huge game and a huge win. So we appreciate everybody for tuning in to our live post-game show. We'll have plenty more content at KCSN during the week to get you ready for that upcoming matchup against the Buffalo Bills. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Turn those notifications off. We've got 18 Chiefs shows a week on the network from a plethora of hosts and different personalities and different perspectives. So tune in for all of that. And if you're listening to audio, we appreciate you following along, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you're at. We appreciate your support. Go ahead and rate and review and give us that 5-star rating. We'd appreciate it. For Kent, for Tucker, for Maddie and Craig, we appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next time.